Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Today, we will discuss some plot lines that never made it to the Harry Potter films. These moments would have significantly enriched the story if they hadn't been cut or altered. Enjoy the video. Number 1. The truth about Rita Skeeter. Rita Skeeter was undoubtedly one of the most annoying characters, but her story hid a secret that many didn't know about. She wrote articles that portrayed Harry in a negative light, and mysteriously knew things she shouldn't have been able to find out. When she wrote an article about Hermione containing personal secrets, Hermione decided to investigate the magic behind this journalist. She soon discovered that Rita Skeeter was an illegal animagus, capable of turning into a beetle. This allowed her to eavesdrop on private conversations, sneaking into the most inaccessible places. Hermione caught Skeeter in a jar and issued an ultimatum. If Skeeter didn't stop her nasty articles, her secret would be revealed. This perfectly demonstrates that Hermione is not only a smart student, but also a force to be reckoned with. Number 2. The Marauders and why they became animagi. With the release of the third book, Harry Potter began facing more complicated mysteries, which was reflected in the film. One of the most noticeable plot lines cut from the film was the backstory of the Marauders. In the film, we learn that characters like Prongs, Padfoot, Moony and Wormtail are James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew. The Marauders became animagi to support their friend Remus, who turned into a werewolf. This way, they could stay close to him, remaining safe while hiding in the form of animals. Number 3. Hermione and the house elf rights. Hermione, born in the Muggle world, couldn't accept the slavery of house elves as it was for pure-blood wizards. In the books, she founded the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, aiming to improve their conditions. In the films, however, this storyline was simply cut, even though it really highlighted Hermione's character. While this part of the plot wasn't critical to the main story, it showed how Hermione fights for justice, even if her ideas are met with confusion by others. Number 4. Voldemort's personal and family history. In The Half-Blood Prince, Harry started taking lessons with Dumbledore, which revealed important events from Voldemort's life. In the books, Harry learns that Voldemort came from a poor but proud pure-blood family, the Marvelows. Voldemort's mother, Marietta, tricked Tom Riddle into marrying her using a love potion, and this tragic situation became key to the theme of love in the series. The films missed many important details, making these memories in the books crucial for a deeper understanding of the character. Number 5. Tonks and Lupin. The romance between Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks was one of the most interesting, but it was barely explored in the films. In the books, their relationship was used to show Lupin's internal struggle with his cowardice. He wasn't afraid to fight enemies, but when it came to his personal life, he often ran away. This was evident when he decided to leave his pregnant wife to continue the search for the Horcruxes with Harry. In the films, Lupin was portrayed as a brighter and stronger character, but his inner conflict went unnoticed. Number 6. The Dursleys' farewell and Dudley's redemption. In the films, the Dursleys are portrayed as one-dimensional villains, harshly treating Harry with no regard for his well-being. However, the books offer a more nuanced view of the family. In the final book, before Harry leaves Privet Drive for good, Dudley surprisingly shows a moment of kindness. He thanks Harry for saving his life during the attack by the Dementors in the Order of the Phoenix. "I don't think you're a waste of space," Dudley says quietly. An unexpected acknowledgement of Harry's humanity and bravery. This farewell moment reveals a small but significant glimpse of humanity within the Dursley family, particularly in Dudley. He recognizes Harry not just as a burden or an inconvenience, but as a person who has saved him. This subtle shift in Dudley's character, from cruelty to reluctant gratitude, adds depth to the story. By omitting this scene, the films lost a touching and meaningful moment that offered viewers a more complex understanding of the Dursleys, showing that even the most unlikely people can change. Number 7. The fate of Neville Longbottom as parents. In the films, Neville Longbottom was mainly portrayed as a shy and clumsy student, but his backstory in the books is far more tragic. His parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom, were brave Aurors and members of the Order of the Phoenix. After Voldemort's first fall, they were captured and tortured by Death Eaters, led by Bellatrix Lestrange, using the Cruciatus Curse. The torture was so brutal that it shattered their minds, leaving them insane. In the Order of the Phoenix, it is revealed that Neville regularly visits them at St. Mungo's Hospital, showing his incredible loyalty and love for his parents despite their condition. This aspect of Neville's story highlights his courage and strength. His ability to care for his parents, even in their broken state, speaks to a level of heroism that goes unnoticed by many. The books show Neville's resilience and inner power as he faces personal tragedy with unwavering loyalty to his family. By omitting these moments, the films missed a key part of Neville's character, reducing his journey to a mere subplot rather than showcasing the depth of his bravery and the emotional pain he endured. The scene of Neville visiting his parents would have been a powerful testament to his quiet strength. Number 8. The Prophecy and Neville's Possible Destiny. The films briefly touched on Sybil Trelawney's prophecy, but they missed a crucial aspect of it that deepens the story. The prophecy states that the child who could defeat Voldemort would be born either to the Potters or the Longbottoms. It was Voldemort's choice to target Harry that sealed his fate as, quote, 3. This decision, based on the prophecy, set in motion the entire chain of events. Quote, P4. Trelawney had foretold. This detail dramatically changes the story of Neville Longbottom. If Voldemort had chosen to target Neville instead, he could have been the one marked as the chosen one. Instead, Harry took that place, making the story of Neville all the more poignant. He was not chosen by fate, but by a twist of circumstance. In The Order of the Phoenix, Neville reflects on this when he says, "I could have been the one." This understanding of his alternate fate deepens Neville's character, showing that even the smallest choices can have massive, far-reaching consequences. Had this element been more thoroughly explored in the films, it would have given viewers a profound understanding of how thin the line is between destiny and choice. It shows how one decision, one act, can change the lives of many. In a world of magic and prophecy, the lives of both Harry and Neville were shaped by that one irreversible moment. The films, by leaving out this nuance, missed the opportunity to show how destiny is not just a matter of fate, but also the consequences of choice and chance. Number 9. Percy Weasley's Betrayal and Return. Percy Weasley almost disappears entirely from the films after the early installments. Yet in the books, his story takes on a rich, dramatic arc. Percy's internal conflict grows as he refuses to believe that Voldemort has returned, choosing instead to focus on his career at the Ministry of Magic. His pride and ambition drive him away from his family. He cuts ties with his parents and siblings, distancing himself from the very people who had always supported him. The pain of his separation is deeply felt by the Weasley family, and Percy's absence is a constant source of heartache. But everything changes in the final battle at Hogwarts. Percy, now fully aware of his mistakes, returns to fight alongside his family. He is no longer the arrogant, career-driven young man who turned his back on them. Instead, he comes to understand the importance of family and loyalty. His return is a powerful moment of redemption, and it is made even more poignant when he reconciles with Fred, his brother, before Fred's tragic death. In the Deathly Hallows, the brief but meaningful conversation between Percy and Fred shows how much Percy has changed. "I'm sorry, Fred. I should have never—" Percy begins, his voice breaking. But before he can finish, Fred interrupts, saying, "It's all right, Percy. You're with us now." This emotional reconciliation, however, is not shown in the films. The absence of this moment in the cinematic version robs viewers of one of the most touching and significant aspects of Percy's character development. Percy's return to the family symbolizes the power of forgiveness, and his final moment with Fred emphasizes how precious family bonds are. It's a profound lesson in the value of reconciliation and love, showing that even after betrayal, redemption is possible. Without this storyline, the films miss an opportunity to explore one of the key themes of the series, the importance of family. Percy's journey from estrangement to reconciliation highlights the emotional depth of the Weasley family story. His return to the fight, alongside the painful loss of Fred, reminds readers of the fragility of life and the need to hold on to the ones we love. It's a moment of redemption and growth that could have added emotional richness to the films. Number 10. Peter Pettigrew's debt to Harry. In the films, Peter Pettigrew was portrayed simply as a cowardly servant of Voldemort, without any real moral struggle or redemption. However, in the books there is a subtle but highly significant moment when Peter recalls how Harry once saved his life. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, when faced with the opportunity to kill Harry, Peter hesitates. "You owe me your life," Harry tells him, reminding him of the debt he still carries. This moment of weakness reveals that deep down, Peter is aware of the moral conflict within him. He's not entirely evil, and for a brief second he falters. This moment of hesitation activates the magical promise Peter had made, an unspoken vow sealed by the magic of his silver hand, a gift from Voldemort. As he stands frozen, unable to act, his hand begins to tighten around his throat. The silver fingers constrict, strangling him for showing weakness. The irony of this moment is tragic and poetic, as Peter's final punishment is a direct result of his own cowardice and inability to break free from the ties that bound him to Voldemort. The films missed this powerful, symbolic moment, leaving out the complexity of Peter's moral struggle. Instead of a mindless traitor, the books offer a glimpse into a man torn between fear and guilt, unable to fully embrace either side. His death, suffocated by the very hand that symbolized his servitude, is a harsh but fitting end. It serves as a reminder of the consequences of betraying trust and loyalty, especially when there is a chance for redemption. By omitting this scene, the films lost an opportunity to explore the depths of Peter's character. His death was not just the result of his allegiance to Voldemort, but the culmination of his own internal conflict. It was a moment of poetic justice, where Peter, his own moral failure, led to his demise. The films, by stripping away this complexity, reduced his character to a mere pawn in the story, missing the emotional weight and the symbolic lesson of his fate. Number 11. The Tragedy of Ariana Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore's past was barely touched upon in the films, yet his family tragedy added significant depth to the books. Ariana Dumbledore, his younger sister, died in a tragic accident during a confrontation between Albus, his brother Aberforth, and Gellert Grindelwald. It was an event that left a permanent scar on Albus, one that shaped the rest of his life. As he later reflected, "I was young, I was ambitious, and I wanted to be the best, but in the end, I failed them all." This incident not only cost him his sister, but also set him on a path away from the lust for power. The guilt from that night haunted Dumbledore, affecting many of the choices he made throughout his life. He had once dreamed of achieving greatness, of changing the wizarding world with Grindelwald by his side. But after Ariana's death, that dream shattered. Instead of seeking power, he turned inward, trying to make amends for his past. This guilt made him more relatable, more human. As Harry would later learn, the greatest wizard of all, who feared nothing and no one, was afraid of himself. The books delve deeply into Dumbledore's internal struggles, which were largely omitted in the films. His personal battles were not just about defeating dark forces, but about reconciling with the mistakes he made in his youth. His relationship with Harry, often marked by mentorship, was also deeply shaped by this sorrow. As Dumbledore once confessed to Harry, "You must be the one to destroy the Horcruxes, Harry. You are the only one who can, and you must do it for all of us." Had this tragic history been fully explored in the films, it would have given viewers a much clearer understanding of Albus Dumbledore's complexity. The films presented him as almost a perfect mentor, wise and untouchable, but the truth of his past, the guilt, the mistakes, and the vulnerability would have shown the audience a side of Dumbledore that was far more grounded and relatable, making his actions, his fears, and his relationship with Harry even more poignant. Number 12. Fleur Delacour and the Weasley family conflict. Fleur Delacour was portrayed in the films as a beautiful but somewhat one-dimensional character. However, in the books, her character was given much more depth, especially in her relationship with the Weasley family. One particularly powerful moment occurred in The Half-Blood Prince, after Bill Weasley was attacked by a werewolf. His mother, Molly, expressed concern about whether Fleur would still want to be with Bill after his disfigurement. Fleur, with fierce determination, rejected this notion. "I am not a fool, Mrs. Weasley. I love Bill and I shall stay with him," she declared. This moment revealed Fleur's true nature, a woman of strength and unwavering love. It showed that her heart was not swayed by appearances, that her affection ran much deeper. Unlike the surface-level beauty that many focused on, Fleur's strength of character shone through in this difficult moment. She was not just a beautiful girl from a foreign land, but someone who cared deeply, someone capable of loyalty and devotion. Sadly, the films left out this pivotal moment, depriving viewers of a crucial part of Fleur as character. Without this scene, the audience misses the chance to understand that Fleur was not simply defined by her looks. Her real beauty came from her heart and her unflinching love for Bill, despite the disfigurement he had suffered. Fleur's rejection of shallow judgments was not just a defense of her love for Bill. It was a bold statement about the importance of inner strength and the power of love to overcome obstacles. In the book, this moment enriches Fleur's character, turning her from a mere pretty face into a complex, admirable person with a powerful heart. Number 13. The full set of trials before the Philosopher, Stone. In the first Harry Potter film, several key challenges were presented to Harry, Hermione, and Ron as they ventured into the depths of Hogwarts to find the Philosopher, Stone. Yet the film left out numerous trials that were described in J.K. Rowling's novel. Each of these omitted challenges crafted by various Hogwarts professors served to highlight not just the magical hurdles the trio faced, but also the personal strengths and growth of the characters, particularly Hermione Granger. One of the most significant trials cut from the film was the riddle set by Professor Severus Snape. It was a challenge based on logic and reasoning, which required the player to select the correct potion from a set of bottles in order to proceed. The puzzle, posed in the book, demanded sharp intellect and careful thinking, qualities that Hermione excelled in. In fact, this puzzle stood out as an emblem of Hermione's character. While Ron and Harry could rely on bravery and intuition, Hermione's intellect became her greatest asset. The riddle involved understanding the subtle clues and choosing a potion that would allow safe passage through the final barrier while leaving the wrong choices to lead to dire consequences. Hermione was the one who solved the puzzle, demonstrating the power of rationality and foresight over impulsiveness. This intellectual challenge not only underscored Hermione's role in the trio, but also her personal growth and resilience. Throughout the story, she was portrayed as more than just the bookish girl. She was a key problem solver in their group, someone whose intellect was crucial in overcoming obstacles. By removing this challenge from the film, the filmmakers simplified Hermione's character arc, focusing more on the action and adventure rather than the brainy problem-solving that was so integral to her character in the novel. Another trial that was omitted from the film was Professor Pomona Sprout's challenge involving the Devil Sea Snare, a magical plant with a deadly grip. In the novel, it is Hermione who identifies the plant and recalls the instructions for handling it, specifically that the plant responds to heat and light. Hermione once again saves the group by using her knowledge of magical plants. The Devil's Snare was a clear reminder of the importance of Hermione, who has extensive knowledge of magic. This trial demonstrated that intelligence, not just bravery or daring, could be the key to overcoming dangers. The film, however, simplified this by turning the devil, the snare, into just a brief moment, omitting Hermione's calm and methodical approach to solving the problem. One of the most jarring omissions in the film was the trial involving the troll, which was set by Professor Quirrell. In the novel, the trio faces a mountain troll that is left behind by Quirrell in the maze. While the film made a fleeting reference to the troll incident earlier, it failed to link it directly to the trio's quest for the stone. The troll, left as an obstacle by Quirrell, was not just a random monster. It symbolized Quirrell's deeper ties to dark forces and his role in Voldemort schemes. The challenge itself was a test of bravery and teamwork. The trio worked together to subdue the troll, combining their individual strengths, Ron's bravery, Harry's daring, and Hermione's quick thinking. This moment highlighted the importance of collaboration, showing that while they were strong individually, together they formed an unbreakable unit. The trial of the troll also served as an interesting contrast to the other challenges. It was a physical trial demanding more than intellectual prowess. In this case, it was their emotional and moral courage that allowed them to succeed. Ron, despite his fear, managed to use his wand in a way that was crucial in the defeat of the troll. This incident also represented the trio, development from hesitant children into confident young wizards capable of facing real dangers. By cutting this part from the film, the filmmakers removed an important aspect of their development, leaving out one of the earlier instances where the trio's teamwork and bravery were put to the test. Each trial served to emphasize the specific qualities of each character, yet the film chose to simplify these moments. While the trio's victory was undoubtedly important in both the book and the film, the omitted trials showcase that their journey was not just about overcoming physical obstacles or dealing with monsters. It was about testing their strengths and weaknesses and growing as individuals. The omission of these moments also diminished the impact of the final trial, one involving the final guardian of the stone, Professor Quirrell, who was secretly under Voldemort's control. In the novel, the trio's individual contributions were clear. Hermione had used her intelligence to get them through the devil's snare. Ron had shown courage when dealing with the troll, and Harry's bravery, loyalty, and heart were crucial in the final confrontation with Quirrell and Voldemort. The significance of their collaboration was less apparent in the film, where the emphasis was placed more on the final confrontation between Harry and Quirrell, leaving the earlier trials to feel more like set pieces rather than integral moments of growth. Furthermore, the philosophical underpinning of these trials, the idea that the way to find the stone was through selflessness and purity of heart, was somewhat watered down in the film. In the novel, Dumbledore makes it clear that only someone who is truly pure of heart could overcome the obstacles and reach the stone. The film did not give enough weight to these elements, simplifying the journey to one of brute force and physical action rather than moral or intellectual growth. Number 14. Marietta Edgecombe. Betrayal of Dumbledore. Army. The story of Marietta Edgecombe, a student of Hogwarts and friend to Cho Chang, is a pivotal moment in the Harry Potter saga that was entirely left out of the film adaptations. While many might remember the intense scenes from Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix involving Dolores Umbridge, Sinister Reign, and the rebellion of Dumbledore's army, the film missed an important detail: the betrayal by Marietta Edgecombe and the consequences that followed. This omission not only reduced the complexity of the conflict between students and the Ministry of Magic, but also stripped the story of one of its crucial lessons on loyalty, consequences, and the power of friendship. Marietta, as depicted in the book, was initially an ally to Cho Chang, and by extension, a member of Dumbledore's army. The group, which included Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Ron Weasley, and many others, had been meeting in secret to learn defense against the dark arts. They were rebelling against the Ministry of Magic, as refusal to provide proper education in the subject under the authoritarian reign of Dolores Umbridge. Marietta's inclusion in this group was meant to strengthen the bond of resistance, particularly as Cho, her close friend, was already participating. However, Marietta's commitment to Dumbledore's army was shallow, and her betrayal was one of the most significant twists in the narrative of the book. It is important to remember the dynamics at play. Marietta's involvement with Dumbledore's army was born from a sense of peer pressure and loyalty to Cho, not from a deep personal commitment to the cause. Her character arc is marked by uncertainty and a lack of conviction. Marietta had not yet shown the strength or the values that would make her a natural ally to the rebellious group. This inherent lack of loyalty would become the fatal flaw that led to her betrayal. Her eventual betrayal of Dumbledore's army was a moment of weakness that was shaped by external pressures. It came when Dolores Umbridge, who had been steadily tightening her grip over Hogwarts, used her influence to extract information from students. Marietta, under the coercion of her mother, who was a supporter of the ministry, succumbed to fear and selfishness. She betrayed her friends to protect herself, revealing the names of Dumbledore's army members to the ruthless professor. What made this betrayal so poignant was the manner in which it was handled. Hermione Granger, ever the strategist, had anticipated such a possibility. Before the meeting, she had cleverly placed a magical protection on the list of names of Dumbledore's army members. The spell Hermione used was powerful and exacting. When Marietta reported to Umbridge, a shocking curse was triggered. Instead of merely delivering the names of the students, Marietta's face was immediately branded with the word "Stuke" in large, painful letters. This curse not only marked her as a traitor, but also served as a permanent reminder of her actions. The significance of this moment cannot be understated. In the book, the curse placed upon Marietta was not just a form of punishment. It was a symbol of betrayal and the heavy cost of disloyalty. Hermione's decision to enact such a severe measure was not made lightly. She was aware of the consequences, but was willing to go to extreme lengths to protect the group she had sworn to defend. Hermione's foresight and the harshness of her magic spoke volumes about the severity of the situation. The curse was a reflection of the high stakes in the battle between the students and the Ministry of Magic. It was a clear indication that there were no longer any easy choices. Loyalty, trust, and secrecy had become the lifeblood of Dumbledore's army. In addition to Hermione's actions, the situation also provided a critical look at the nature of betrayal. Marietta's decision to reveal the identities of the students was a stark contrast to the actions of her friends. While the members of Dumbledore's army were bound by a shared sense of resistance and camaraderie, Marietta's betrayal exposed the limits of those bonds. She had been willing to sacrifice her friends to protect her own safety, a choice that made her the ultimate villain in that moment. Her betrayal was also a turning point for the entire group. The members of Dumbledore's army were forced to confront the reality that they were not just battling an oppressive regime, they were also fighting against the deep currents of fear, cowardice, and self-interest that ran through their own ranks. The betrayal served as a painful reminder that even the most trusted of friends could be swayed by the forces of power and fear. One of the most powerful aspects of the book is how it portrays the students' responses to Marietta's actions. In the wake of her betrayal, they do not immediately condemn her outright. Instead, there is a sense of sorrow and confusion, a collective heartbreak at the collapse of trust. Harry, who had been central to the formation of Dumbledore's army, was deeply affected by the revelation. He felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the betrayal itself, but for the fragility of human connections in such a turbulent time. In this way, Marietta's actions were not just a betrayal of the group, but also a devastating commentary on the emotional cost of the conflict. In contrast, the films chose to omit Marietta's betrayal entirely. Her absence from the movie adaptations robbed the story of an important emotional turning point. The The films focused on the more action-packed elements of the rebellion, like the meetings at 12 Grimmauld Place and the climactic battle at the Ministry of Magic. While these moments were important in their own right, the films neglected the quieter, more intimate betrayal that had lasting consequences for the characters involved. Marietta, storyline with its dark emotional undertones, could have added depth to the conflict, showing that the stakes of the fight against the Ministry went beyond physical battles and directly into the hearts of the characters. Number 15, the story of Winky the House Elf. The story of Winky the House Elf is a poignant and significant narrative that was tragically omitted from the films, yet it plays a crucial role in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. In the novel Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Winky's tale is intertwined with themes of magic, slavery, and the struggle for rights. A house elf who once served the powerful and cruel Crouch family, Winky, his character offers a vivid example of the deep social and moral questions that Rowling explores throughout the wizarding world. Winky was originally introduced as the house elf belonging to the Crouch family, where she served with great loyalty and dedication. She was fiercely devoted to her masters, especially to Bartemius Crouch Sr., whom she served for many years. However, her life took a dramatic turn during the events of the Quidditch World Cup, where she was wrongfully accused of using magic. It was during this pivotal moment that Winky's fate was sealed. She was found holding the wand of Barty Crouch Jr., a dark wizard whom Crouch Sr. had secretly imprisoned in his house and was accused of using the wand to perform dark magic. In truth, she had no part in the evil acts of her master, son, but because she was a house elf, an often overlooked, oppressed, magical creature, she was blamed and dismissed without mercy. The injustice done to Winky was not only a reflection of the abuse of power, but also a stark representation of the way house elves were treated in the wizarding world. Her dismissal by Bartemius Crouch Sr. revealed a larger issue of magical slavery that the book delves into, but which the film adaptation chose to exclude. The house elves in the wizarding world are bound by ancient laws that require them to serve their masters without question, and they are subjected to harsh treatment, exploitation, and punishment without any legal recourse. Winky's story was a microcosm of this tragic reality. She was cast aside like an object, with no one to defend her, no one to question the abuse she had suffered, and no one to care about the true story. Following her dismissal from the Crouch household, Winky's life spiraled into despair. She was taken to Hogwarts, where she became a part of the house elf workforce. The contrast between her previous life of servitude to the Crouch family and her new, more degrading position at the school highlighted the depths of her fall from grace. At Hogwarts, she was forced to perform menial tasks, and her spirit was broken. Instead of being treated with respect or sympathy, Winky was subjected to mockery and pity. She became an outcast, and as the pressures of her new life wore on, she fell into a state of deep depression. This part of Winky's story is particularly tragic, as it underscores how the house elf system was designed not only to exploit but to psychologically degrade magical beings who were considered inferior. Moreover, Winky's descent into alcoholism was a further extension of the way the wizarding world systematically stripped her of her dignity. She began to drink from the alcohol left in the stands after the Quidditch World Cup, seeking solace in a world that had no compassion for her. Her brokenness became apparent to those around her, especially to Hermione Granger, who was one of the few characters in the series to show empathy toward house elves. Hermione, of course, would later become the leader of SPEW, the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, fighting for the rights and freedoms of house elves like Winky. Yet the loss of Winky's potential to be a happier, more independent creature served as a stark warning of the deeply ingrained injustices within the wizarding world social structure. Through Winky, Rowling introduced the idea that house elves were not just magical servants, but beings with emotions, desires, and a sense of self. Winky's plight was not merely a matter of an elf being wrongly accused or punished, but a larger commentary on the cruelty and inhumanity of a system that used magic and power to oppress a sentient race. The novels explore the concept of freedom, particularly through Hermione, as activism, but Winky's story serves as a counterpoint to this idealism. It is a reflection of the world as failure to recognize the rights of those considered lesser. Winky's misery is a result of a deeply ingrained system of subjugation that was accepted as normal by most of the magical world. Rowling's decision to keep Winky's story in the book but omit it from the films was one of the many ways in which the adaptation missed an opportunity to delve deeper into the moral fabric of the Harry Potter series. In the book, Winky's tale is a clear and necessary reflection of the broader issues of freedom and rights. It allows the reader to reflect on the ethical questions surrounding slavery and servitude, especially within a world that prides itself on its magical superiority. Through her pain, Winky became a symbol of the forgotten and the oppressed in a society that continues to turn a blind eye to its own moral failings. The significance of Winky's story extends far beyond her personal suffering. It is essential to understanding the larger moral lessons embedded within the Harry Potter series. It is also a pivotal moment in the development of Hermione as character and her journey to becoming an advocate for justice. Hermione's insistence on fighting for the rights of house elves, although initially met with ridicule by her friends and classmates, is a moral stance that grows in importance as the series progresses. The tragedy of Winky highlights the injustices of the world Hermione seeks to change, making her activism even more poignant. Winky's struggle also provides a sharp contrast to the treatment of other characters within the magical world. For example, the contrast between her life and that of the Weasley family's house elf, Creature, further emphasizes the lack of care and respect for house elves in the wizarding world. Creature, who is also mistreated and exploited, reacts differently to his situation, showing how different experiences of abuse can shape an individual, his actions and mindset. But in both cases, the house elves are shown as products of a system that values them as tools, not as individuals with intrinsic worth. Number 16, the true friendship between Harry and Dobby. In the world of Harry Potter, few relationships are as deeply meaningful yet underappreciated as the bond between Harry and Dobby, the house elf. Dobby's role in the films, though significant, does not fully capture the depth of his friendship with Harry that is revealed in the books. The films focus more on the quirky and humorous aspects of Dobby's character, while the books delve into the emotional and transformative nature of his connection with Harry. The essence of their friendship is based on trust, respect, and mutual kindness, which is why the impact of Dobby's death in the films doesn't land as powerfully as it does in J.K. Rowling's written words. Dobby's first appearance in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets sets the stage for what would become an unlikely but powerful friendship. In the book, Harry's initial encounter with the house elf is one of confusion and frustration. Dobby is a peculiar and eccentric creature who initially causes a lot of trouble for Harry, from the crashing of the bludger at the Quidditch match to the chaos at the Burrow. However, despite the trouble Dobby causes Harry, sympathy for him begins to grow. He recognizes that Dobby is a victim of a cruel master, the Malfoy family, who treats him inhumanely. When Harry sees how broken Dobby is, his sense of justice takes over, and he acts in a way that sets the tone for the future of their relationship. In the book, the act of freeing Dobby is much more profound than in the films. Dobby is bound by magical servitude, and when Harry tricks Lucius Malfoy into giving Dobby a sock, it's a gesture of liberation. Dobby's immediate reaction is one of overwhelming joy. "Dobby is free!" he exclaims, and this moment is filled with emotional weight. For Harry, it's not just about the sock, it's about offering Dobby something that no one else had: freedom. The act of kindness in the book is not only a key turning point for Dobby, but it also marks the beginning of a friendship that would endure through some of the darkest times in the wizarding world. What stands out in their relationship is how Harry continues to show genuine care for Dobby long after his initial act of kindness. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry once again crosses paths with Dobby, this time at Hogwarts, where the house elf is employed. The circumstances of Dobby's employment highlight the shift in their relationship. Instead of being bound to the whims of cruel masters, Dobby is now free and is working in a position that gives him some measure of dignity. But the relationship between Harry and Dobby has only deepened. Harry takes a personal interest in Dobby's well-being, and this is exemplified when he buys Dobby a pair of socks. Harry knows how much Dobby cherishes socks, a simple, thoughtful gesture that holds much more significance in their evolving friendship. This kindness is reciprocated by Dobby in ways that go beyond simple gratitude. Dobby proves to be an invaluable ally to Harry, even though he is not always physically present in the action. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, after Harry frees Dobby, the house elf goes on to assist Harry in numerous subtle but crucial ways. He helps to keep Harry safe, providing him with key pieces of information, such as the warning about the dangers surrounding the Chamber of Secrets. Dobby, despite being a servant in the Malfoy household, is willing to sacrifice everything to aid Harry. His loyalty is not just to Harry as a master, but to the core of what Harry represents: freedom, kindness, and justice. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Dobby goes further, showing an unwavering commitment to Harry's safety. After Harry's return to Hogwarts, Dobby helps him once again, this time by sharing critical information about the Triwizard Tournament and the dangerous tasks Harry will face. He even goes as far as to work at Hogwarts just to be close to Harry, ensuring that his friend is safe, protected, and well taken care of. The selflessness with which Dobby acts is a testament to the depth of their bond, a bond built on the foundation of trust and shared respect. But it is in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows that the emotional weight of Dobby's friendship with Harry truly becomes clear. By this time, Harry has undergone significant personal growth, and his relationship with Dobby serves as a mirror of that growth. Throughout the series, Harry has gone from a young boy who was naive and unaware of the complexities of the wizarding world to a young man who understands the importance of sacrifice, loyalty, and selflessness. His friendship with Dobby reflects this transformation. Dobby is no longer the quirky, humorous character introduced in the second book, but has grown into a character with an undeniable emotional depth. The significance of Dobby's sacrifice in the Deathly Hallows cannot be overstated. In the book, when Dobby dies while rescuing Harry, Ron, and Hermione from Malfoy Manor, it is a devastating moment. But the heartbreak is compounded by the simple fact that Dobby is dying in the service of his friends. In his final moments, Dobby is not a servant, he is a friend, an equal, and an ally. As Harry holds him in his arms, Dobby's final words are not just a reflection of his gratitude for the freedom Harry gave him, but also an expression of the deep love and loyalty he feels toward his friend. Dobby's death is not merely the death of a minor character, it is the loss of one of Harry's closest companions, someone who had been with him through thick and thin. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Dobby's death is poignant, but it is not as emotionally charged as in the book. The films, in their attempt to streamline the narrative, reduce the importance of Dobby's character. Harry's relationship with Dobby is presented as more incidental, a fleeting interaction rather than a meaningful bond. The absence of the depth and richness of their friendship diminishes the emotional impact of Dobby's sacrifice. The films show Harry burying Dobby, and the scene is touching, but it lacks the emotional resonance it would have had if the full extent of their relationship had been portrayed. Harry's grief in the books is profound because Dobby was more than just a character who helped Harry along the way. He was a friend who had earned Harry respect and affection. In contrast, the emotional weight of Dobby's death in the books is tied to a series of key moments that were omitted in the films. For example, Harry's act of giving Dobby the socks, his thoughtful care for Dobby at Hogwarts, and the way in which Dobby repeatedly risks his life to help Harry are all integral to understanding the emotional depth of their relationship. The scenes leading up to Dobby's death in the book also give Harry's sorrow more context. Harry is not simply mourning a character he met once in a while, he is grieving the loss of a friend who had shown unwavering loyalty and selflessness. The story of Dobby and Harry's friendship speaks to the themes of freedom, loyalty, and love that permeate the entire Harry Potter series. It is a friendship that transcends the boundaries of master and servant, where the lines between what is expected and what is heartfelt become blurred. Dobby, in his innocence and purity, teaches Harry some of the most important lessons about love and loyalty. In return, Harry offers Dobby the most valuable gift of all, the chance to live a life of freedom. This bond, deeply rooted in mutual respect and affection, is one of the most poignant in the series. The films, while capturing the key moments of Dobby's character arc, cannot fully convey the richness of the friendship between Harry and Dobby that the books so carefully nurture. The death of Dobby, tragic as it is, becomes all the more heartbreaking when one considers the profound and often overlooked depth of his friendship with Harry. Number 17. The Mirror of Sirius and its deeper meaning. The Mirror of Sirius Black. An object of haunting significance in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, plays a role far more pivotal than the films suggest. In the movies, the mirror is briefly shown, a mysterious gift from Sirius to Harry, with little explanation about its deeper implications. However, in the books, the mirror is not just a sentimental object, it is a symbol of loss, regret, and the lessons that the past leaves behind. Its story, intertwined with Harry's journey of grief and discovery, is a crucial thread that the films chose to omit. The Mirror of Sirius is not just a magical artifact, but a link to the past, to the lost and the loved, and to the wisdom that can only be earned through pain and the passage of time. When Sirius Black gifts Harry the mirror in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, it seems like a simple, thoughtful gesture. Sirius, wanting to stay connected with Harry despite the physical distance between them, sends him the mirror with instructions to use it to communicate. At first, Harry dismisses it, considering it yet another item in a world already filled with magical trinkets, some of which had already proven unreliable or unnecessary. The mirror is placed in a drawer forgotten and left to collect dust. This seemingly trivial choice, however, becomes a turning point in Harry's emotional development when Sirius dies, leaving Harry with a terrible, inescapable grief that threatens to undo him. It is only after Sirius's death that Harry finally recalls the mirror, realizing that it could have allowed him to reach out to his godfather one last time. The sense of missed opportunity is crushing. In the Order of the Phoenix, Harry stands at the precipice of understanding, recognizing how often he has taken for granted the bonds he once held dear, how frequently he has ignored the tools that could have provided him solace. The mirror now becomes more than just a magical object. It is a painful reminder of how Harry's inability to confront his grief in the present moment has left him with nothing but an empty reflection. The mirror, through its absence at the moment it could have mattered most, becomes a symbol of Harry's internal struggle with regret and his inability to alter the past. But the true power of the mirror lies in what it eventually allows Harry to discover: a new connection. The mirror is not just an instrument of loss, but one of communication, of forging new links to those who are no longer there. After his sorrowful recollection, it is through this very object that Harry reaches out to Aberforth Dumbledore, the brother of the legendary Albus Dumbledore. It is Aberforth who, in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, plays a crucial role in the Battle of Hogwarts, guiding Harry and his friends when they need it most. Without the mirror, Harry would have never contacted Aberforth, never learned of the man's significance, nor would he have had access to the aid and wisdom Aberforth provides. The importance of Aberforth in the fight against Voldemort cannot be overstated. He is in many ways the unsung hero of the saga. His role is not one of grandiose speeches or heroic displays, but of quiet, practical assistance. He helps Harry and his companions when they are lost, guiding them to safety and providing refuge at the Hog is head in. Aberforth, as presence in the series, adds a layer of complexity to the themes of family and loyalty. The idea that Harry can connect with him through the seemingly insignificant yet deeply symbolic mirror highlights how connections can be forged even in the aftermath of death, and how even the most seemingly lost pieces of the past can hold the key to the future. The symbolism of the mirror in Harry Potter is profound. It mirrors Harry's emotional growth, his journey from regret to acceptance, from anger to understanding. It underscores the idea that sometimes we must confront the things we wish we could forget in order to move forward. It also reflects the series' deeper themes about the impact of loss. Harry, throughout his journey, suffers from the deaths of many close to him, his parents, Cedric Diggory, Sirius Black, and yet he continues learning from each loss. The mirror is a physical manifestation of this internal process, a way for Harry to literally look at the past and see it for what it was, not as something to mourn, but as something that shapes who he is. Without the inclusion of the mirror, his full story in the films, viewers lose out on a crucial aspect of Harry as to his character development. The films, while successful in many ways, cannot convey the same depth of Harry's regret and his emotional journey because the mirror symbolism is almost entirely left out. In the book, Harry's relationship with the mirror and what it represents is just as significant as his experiences with the prophecy, his connection to Voldemort, or his struggle with his own identity. The mirror serves as a mirror to his soul, reflecting the weight of his choices and the paths not taken. The tragic beauty of the mirror is that in the end, it isn't about the object itself, but about what it teaches Harry. The mirror represents the idea that our mistakes, our regrets, and our sorrow can be tools for personal growth. Harry's relationship with the mirror is a turning point in his journey of understanding that while we cannot change the past, we can choose how we respond to it. Harry learns to carry the weight of his losses not as a burden, but as part of who he is. The mirror teaches him that it is not the death of loved ones that defines us, but the choices we make in the wake of those losses. Moreover, the mirror's absence in the films highlights a larger theme, the necessity of confronting the past. Throughout the Harry Potter series, characters grapple with their pasts, whether it's Harry with his parents, Hermione with her sense of identity, or even Severus Snape with his guilt over Lily Potter's death. The mirror is one such vehicle for confronting what cannot be undone, for recognizing that the past shapes us but does not control us. It is this theme that resonates with readers who can understand Harry's sorrow as he learns to accept the loss of Sirius, just as they can understand the heartache of every character who struggles with their own personal history. The Mirror of Sirius ultimately serves as a catalyst for Harry, its deeper emotional understanding and his capacity for forgiveness, both for himself and for others. It allows him to reach out to someone who, despite the circumstances, becomes a key ally in the final battle against Voldemort. The film's omission of this subplot leaves a hole in Harry's son's emotional journey, one that would have made his development even more poignant. The mirror is not just a simple artifact, it is a thread that ties Harry's past to his future, a tool that helps him reconcile with his own grief, and a symbol of how tragedy can shape us into better versions of ourselves. Through the Mirror of Sirius, Harry is reminded that even in the face of death and loss, there is always a way forward, sometimes through the most unexpected connections, and sometimes through the simplest of objects. In this way, the mirror is not just a relic of the past, but a beacon of hope for the future, teaching Harry, and by extension, the readers, that the past, while unchangeable, can guide us toward a better tomorrow. It is this lesson that the films, with their omission of the mirror's full significance, could not fully convey, leaving behind one of the most poignant aspects of Harry's character arc. Number 18, the students' rebellion against Umbridge. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, one of the most pivotal yet underrepresented aspects of the story is the resistance movement among the students at Hogwarts. While the film adaptation captures the stark rise of Dolores Umbridge's authoritarian reign, it overlooks the vibrant and multi-layered student rebellion that unfolds throughout the book. This rebellion is not only a fight against Umbridge's control, but also a symbol of hope, defiance, and unity against an oppressive system. The students of Hogwarts were not merely victims of circumstance, they were active participants in their own liberation, and their actions resonated deeply with the spirit of resistance. In the book, the students' defiance began with something as simple as the early days of Umbridge's regime. Her arrival at Hogwarts marked the beginning of a series of new, tyrannical rules that dictated every aspect of student life. But rather than simply submit, the students, led by Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, and others, found inventive and humorous ways to undermine her authority. Their tactics ranged from releasing Fred and George Weasley, his mischievous fireworks in the corridors, to more subtle acts of rebellion, such as sneakily hexing the entrance to the Slytherin common room. The underlying theme of these actions was clear. The students weren't just responding to the evil that was slowly creeping into their world. They were rejecting it entirely, asserting their right to control their own lives. One particularly memorable moment from the book illustrates the degree to which the students would go to subvert Umbridge's grip on the school. During one of her unyielding rounds of questioning, one of the students, likely aiming to escape her wrath, falsely claimed to have seen, quote, 33, U2's, quote, 34. This moment, filled with absurdity and humour, was emblematic of the students' growing sense of unity and rebellion. They were no longer afraid to mock the system that sought to control them. Even in the most mundane moments, they found opportunities to express their defiance, turning the oppressive atmosphere of Hogwarts into a battleground for their ideals. This scene, while humorous, also encapsulated the essence of student rebellion that pervaded the story. It wasn't about violence or grand gestures, but about creating small, manageable disruptions that chipped away at the walls of the totalitarian regime Umbridge sought to build. The students were clever, using humour as a weapon against the ridiculousness of their oppressors. By simply refusing to bow to her demands, they began to chip away at her authority. Fred and George Weasley were, of course, the most prominent figures in this wave of student rebellion. Their bold escape from Hogwarts with a spectacular display of fireworks was one of the most visually striking moments of resistance in the series. In the film, Fred and George's dramatic departure is reduced to a brief spectacle, but in the book it is far more significant. It is not just an escape, it is an act of defiance that symbolized a larger break from the Ministry's interference in Hogwarts. Fred and George didn't just leave, they left with flair, setting off an unforgettable series of magical fireworks in the Great Hall. These fireworks, both dazzling and chaotic, were more than just a prank. They were an open challenge to Umbridge's authority. The twins turned a simple school event into a celebration of freedom, using their creativity to not only humiliate the oppressive regime, but to inspire others to follow suit. Behind the more dramatic moments of rebellion, however, was the quieter, more consistent resistance that took place in the classrooms and hallways of Hogwarts. Hermione Granger, ever the planner, spearheaded the formation of Dumbledore's army, a secret group where students met in the Room of Requirement to learn defense against the dark arts. This was a direct response to Umbridge's refusal to teach proper defense techniques in favor of her own authoritarian agenda. What began as an informal group of students grew into a network of resistance, united by a common cause. They would no longer be passive in the face of tyranny. They were actively taking their education and their future into their own hands. The formation of Dumbledore's army was one of the most important turning points in the story. It was more than just a group of students learning to defend themselves against dark magic. It was a declaration of autonomy. It was the students saying, on quote 36, "The room where they practiced, a hidden sanctuary away from Umbridge's watchful eyes, became a symbol of their resistance. They weren't just learning magic. They were learning how to fight for a world that aligned with their values. And yet, even in the face of their growing power, the students' rebellion was not without cost. Umbridge's regime was unrelenting, and she used every means at her disposal to suppress any dissent. The Inquisitorial Squad, a group of students loyal to Umbridge, was formed to spy on and punish their peers. Among them was Pansy Parkinson, a character who, in the book, plays a more active role in supporting Umbridge's regime. Her presence within the Inquisitorial Squad highlighted the divisions among the students themselves, with some choosing to align themselves with the oppressive forces at Hogwarts rather than resist them. This division was not just an external conflict, it was a mirror of the internal struggles faced by many students, torn between loyalty to the status quo and the desire for change. However, despite the betrayals and dangers, the rebellion continued to grow. The students' acts of defiance were not just random acts of mischief, they were a testament to their courage and their determination to protect the values they held dear. The most significant moment of this rebellion came when the students stood together in defense of Harry Potter and the truth about Lord Voldemort's return. At a time when the Ministry of Magic was determined to suppress any acknowledgement of the Dark Wizard's return, the students played a crucial role in exposing the truth. As the story reached its climax, the students' rebellion culminated in the battle at the Ministry of Magic. Although they were initially dismissed as mere children by the adults around them, it was their actions, fueled by the lessons they learned in Dumbledore's army, that made all the difference. In the end, their fight wasn't just against Umbridge or his rule, it was against a system that sought to deny them their agency, their autonomy, and their right to choose their own futures. The film adaptation of Order of the Phoenix omits much of this nuance, opting instead to focus on the darker and more dramatic aspects of the story. The humour and cleverness of the student rebellion are downplayed, and the growing sense of unity among the students is lost in favour of a more traditional narrative of good versus evil. Yet in the book, these moments of resistance are just as important as the larger battles, for they represent the heart of what it means to fight for freedom and justice. Ultimately, the student rebellion in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was not just about the individual acts of resistance that occurred, it was about the transformation of Hogwarts itself. As the students began to fight back against Umbridge's totalitarian rule, they breathed new life into the school. Hogwarts was no longer just a school of magic, it became a symbol of resistance, a place where students stood together to fight for what they believed in. Through their rebellion, they learned that even in the face of tyranny, there was always room for defiance, humour, and the pursuit of freedom. Number 19, Professor Binns and the early hints of Horcruxes. Professor Binns is one of the most peculiar figures in the world of Harry Potter. Despite his somewhat dull and monotonous nature, he carries an intriguing backstory that would have enriched the films had it been included. As the ghostly professor of history of magic at Hogwarts, Professor Binns is a character who continues teaching long after his death, having simply risen from his chair one day and drifted away from his mortal body. This odd transition, however, doesn't make him the most beloved professor among the students. His teaching style is uninspiring and heavily focused on facts and dates, leading to a deep sense of disconnection with his audience. He's often used as a satire of the overly theoretical educator who lacks the ability to engage students in the real world. In the book Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Professor Binns provides one of the earliest mentions of Horcruxes, the dark magical objects that play a crucial role in the overarching story of Lord Voldemort's power. Although this concept is explored more deeply by Dumbledore in later books, it is Professor Binns who first introduces it in his lecture on the history of Slytherin and the Chamber of Secrets. Harry Potter, along with his friends Ron and Hermione, learns of the existence of Horcruxes in a rather dull and nonchalant manner during one of Binns' ghostly lectures. The subject of the Chamber of Secrets itself is filled with ancient legends, and Professor Binns casually mentions how Lord Voldemort, in his younger days, split his soul into multiple pieces and hid them in objects, making it impossible for anyone to defeat him fully. The idea of Horcruxes being brought up by Professor Binns is an important detail in understanding Voldemort's history. This revelation was not only a vital part of the plot that helps Harry in later books, but it also underscores the dark depth of magic that was discussed only in the most tedious of contexts. What Professor Binns essentially provides, though in an offhand manner, is a key to understanding how Voldemort manipulated the very fabric of life and death, creating something that was nearly impossible to destroy. However, while the subject matter is crucial to the story, the ghostly professor's lackluster delivery makes it almost a throwaway moment in the grand scheme of things. In the film adaptations, the entire concept of Horcruxes is unveiled by Dumbledore much later on in the series. This was a conscious choice by the filmmakers as it allowed for a more dramatic reveal and gave Dumbledore the opportunity to mentor Harry directly. However, in the books, it is Professor Binns who provides this early clue, presenting it as part of his lesson on Slytherin as hidden legacy. The fact that this was omitted from the films is telling. Binns, with his ghostly nature and lack of enthusiasm, may not have been the ideal character to relay such a dark and complex piece of wizarding history. Nevertheless, the omission removed a character who was oddly charming in his own way, and his role in teaching Harry and his classmates about the darker aspects of magic went unrepresented in the cinematic portrayal of Hogwarts. Professor Binns' contribution to the history of Horcruxes is significant not just because of the magical lore he imparts, but because it gives readers a glimpse into the history of dark magic that is largely obscured in the wizarding world. This is a side of magic that for the most part remains hidden from students in the Hogwarts curriculum. Binns, despite his boring nature, holds a wealth of knowledge about ancient magic, some of it too dangerous or controversial to be discussed openly. Through him, readers learn about the terrible things that can be done with magic when power and immortality are the goals. The legend of the Chamber of Secrets, which Binns lectures on, is deeply tied to the concept of Horcruxes. It is here, in Binns' dry retelling, that the students first hear about the possibility that Slytherin may have created a secret chamber beneath the school to house a dark secret, one that might still be causing trouble decades later. Although Binns presents the legend with a heavy dose of skepticism, the story becomes a cornerstone of the plot of the Chamber of Secrets and lays the groundwork for the discovery of the basilisk. The idea that the chamber itself was tied to a dark magic, the kind of magic that is most often associated with Voldemort, hints at the dangerous and mysterious nature of Slytherin, its legacy, and how it continues to influence the school even centuries later. Binns' role in the wizarding world is further emphasized by the fact that, as a ghost, he represents a bridge between the past and the present. While he is detached from the world of the living, he continues to teach and guide students about the history of the magical world. This idea is poignantly symbolized by his existence as a spectral teacher, his body no longer a part of the living world, but his knowledge still remaining undisturbed and unmoved. His ghostly form floats through the classrooms, much like a cloud of knowledge that remains in the background, ignored by most of the students who find his lectures tedious and dry. This spectral teaching style is part of what makes Binns so amusing in the books. He is one of the few characters who can combine both the dry, uninspired nature of teaching with the surreal experience of being a ghost. However, there is more to his presence than mere humour. Through Binns we see that the past is never truly gone, it lives on, haunting the present. Binns himself is a direct reflection of the way history can continue to haunt us, even when we wish to forget. In a way, he serves as a reminder that the legacy of magic, both dark and light, will always have an effect on the present, whether or not it is acknowledged. In many ways, Binns' ghostly lessons and his odd detachment from the students mirror the disconnection that many people feel from history itself. The way Binns delivers his lectures, monotonous, dispassionate, and completely unengaged with the lives of the students, reflects how the study of history can sometimes be perceived as irrelevant or uninteresting to those living through it. His character speaks to the idea that, although history is filled with important lessons and knowledge, it often fails to connect with those who need to hear it the most. This sense of historical detachment is at odds with the urgency and importance of the knowledge Binns imparts, particularly when it comes to the dark magic that Voldemort left behind. Ultimately, Professor Binns serves as a crucial, albeit underappreciated figure in the Harry Potter series. While his lessons on Horcruxes and the darker side of magic may be easily overlooked due to his unremarkable personality, they are key to understanding Voldemort, his past, and the threat he poses to the wizarding world. His ghostly existence, coupled with his dry teaching style, creates an atmosphere of both humour and horror, reminding readers that the past is always lurking, waiting to shape the future in unexpected and dangerous ways. The films may have chosen to leave Binns out, but in the books, his role, while understated, is a critical one, linking the ancient past with the dark present, and providing essential clues that help Harry and his friends piece together the mystery of Voldemort's immortality. Number 20, Peeves the Poltergeist and his missing role. The absence of Peeves the Poltergeist from the Harry Potter films stands as one of the most notable omissions in the adaptation of J.K. Rowling's beloved books. Peeves, the mischievous and unpredictable ghost who wreaked havoc in the halls of Hogwarts, was a character who played a far more important role in the books than many casual fans of the films might realize. He was not just a source of comic relief or a troublemaker, he was an embodiment of Hogwarts' chaotic, rebellious spirit. His mischievous pranks were often the backdrop to more serious events, and his very presence underscored the wild, untamed nature of the school that was often at odds with authority, In the books, Peeves was the kind of character who couldn't be ignored. He was a constant, ever-present force of anarchy, disturbing both students and faculty alike. He was a mischievous poltergeist, a creature of pure chaos, with no discernible purpose other than to make life at Hogwarts as difficult as possible for those who sought to impose order. He delighted in causing trouble, whether it was by throwing water balloons at the students, turning the school corridors into slippery, chaotic slides, or loudly causing a ruckus in the middle of an important meeting. His pranks were legendary and were a significant part of Hogwarts' atmosphere. One of the most significant, yet often overlooked roles Peeves played was in the battle against Dolores Umbridge. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the arrival of Umbridge, a cruel and tyrannical figure, was a moment of great distress for the students of Hogwarts. She imposed strict, draconian rules and took pleasure in punishing students. It was at this time that Peeves found his true calling. While the students were organizing their resistance through the formation of Dumbledore's army, Peeves took it upon himself to make Umbridge's life as miserable as possible. His antics escalated to an almost heroic level as he relentlessly mocked her, throwing objects and creating chaos wherever she went. At one point, he even helped the students by sabotaging the inquisitorial squad, a group of students empowered by Umbridge to enforce her authority. Peeves, in his own chaotic way, was a vital ally to the resistance. His pranks, although seemingly pointless, were an important part of the school's defiance against the oppressive forces threatening it. Despite his importance in the books, Peeves was completely absent in the films. This omission was not just a minor one, it removed a crucial element of the Hogwarts experience. Peeves was more than just a poltergeist. He was a symbol of the school's rebellious spirit. He represented the students' ability to fight back against oppressive authority in their own, often chaotic, way. Peeves' absence in the films left a noticeable void in the depiction of the school, particularly in terms of its dynamic, unpredictable atmosphere. Without him, the films lost a key part of what made Hogwarts feel like a living, breathing institution. Interestingly, Peeves' potential to enhance the humor and overall dynamic of the films was not lost on the filmmakers. In fact, a well-known comedic actor, Rick Mayall, was reportedly cast to play Peeves in the film adaptations. Mayall, famous for his roles in The Young Ones and Bottom, was known for his flair for slapstick and anarchic humor. His casting as Peeves seemed like a perfect fit for the character, and there was even talk of his scenes being filmed. However, for reasons that are still unclear, Peeves was ultimately cut from the films and Mayall's involvement was scrapped. This left fans wondering what might have been. The combination of Mayall as distinctive comedic timing and Peeves' chaotic nature could have added a unique, humor-filled dimension to the films that was sorely missing. It would have been a wonderful opportunity to inject the films with the kind of unpredictable energy that made the books so engaging. But Peeves was more than just a character who could add some comic relief to the films. He was a vital part of the school's ecosystem. Hogwarts, as depicted in the books, was not just a place of magic and learning. It was also a place of mischief, rebellion, and wild unpredictability. Peeves personified these qualities. His existence in the halls of the school reminded everyone, students and staff alike, that Hogwarts was not a sterile, controlled environment, but a living, breathing institution that thrived on chaos. Peeves' antics, from causing chaos during the Yule Ball to his pranks on teachers like Filch, played an integral role in showing just how much life there was in the school. Without Peeves, Hogwarts would have felt much more like a traditional school devoid of the wild, chaotic charm that made it unique. In the context of the larger narrative of the Harry Potter series, Peeves also played a significant role in the development of certain characters. For example, his relationship with Filch, the cantankerous caretaker of Hogwarts, was one of mutual irritation but also a source of dark humour. Filch, a squib, was already a bitter and resentful figure, but his interactions with Peeves added another layer to his character. Peeves, who delighted in tormenting Filch, played a role in making Filch more of a tragic figure than he otherwise would have been. At the same time, Peeves' constant pranks on the students provided a kind of relief from the otherwise dark and heavy moments of the story. When the wizarding world was in turmoil and the students of Hogwarts were facing unimaginable challenges, Peeves' antics reminded everyone that not all was doom and gloom. Sometimes, even in the darkest of times, a little bit of mischief could provide a sense of levity and balance. Peeves' impact on the school's atmosphere was not just about causing chaos, however. His role in the final battle at Hogwarts in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was perhaps one of the most significant moments of his existence. Although his involvement in the final battle was brief, it was powerful. Peeves played a role in helping the defenders of Hogwarts fight back against the Death Eaters. He threw water balloons, disrupted the enemy, his plans, and caused enough havoc to give the defenders a chance to rally. His actions were small in comparison to the larger battles taking place, but they were symbolic. Peeves, the troublemaker and prankster, was standing against the forces of darkness, reminding everyone that even the most unlikely heroes could make a difference in the fight for what was right. Despite his significance in the books, Peeves remains one of the more enigmatic characters in the Harry Potter series. He was never fully explained, and his origins were never explored in detail. This only added to the mystery surrounding him. Peeves was simply a force of nature, a chaotic entity with no clear purpose other than to make life at Hogwarts as wild and unpredictable as possible. This sense of mystery and unpredictability was part of what made him so fascinating. In a series filled with magical creatures, spells, and epic battles, Peeves was a reminder that not all magic was serious. Sometimes magic could be wild, strange, and a little bit ridiculous. The decision to omit Peeves from the films was ultimately a missed opportunity. While the films certainly captured much of the magic and wonder of the books, Peeves was one of those characters whose absence left a noticeable gap in the overall experience. His antics were not just a form of comic relief. They were a reflection of the world J.K. Rowling had created. The world of Hogwarts was a place where anything could happen, where the unexpected was always around the corner. Peeves, in his own unique way, embodied that spirit. By removing him, the films lost a little bit of the unpredictability and fun that made the books so beloved. It was a decision that ultimately left fans longing for what could have been, a Peeves that could have added even more depth to the magical world of Hogwarts. Number 21, the continuing legacy of the Mirror of Erised. The Mirror of Erised is one of the most poignant and powerful magical objects introduced in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It shows the deepest desires of a person's heart, a reflection of what they most yearn for, and for Harry, it reveals his late parents, James and Lily Potter. This emotional revelation becomes a cornerstone of Harry's longing for family, for love, and for the connection he lost too early in life. The scene where Harry first encounters the mirror is one of the most moving moments of the entire saga. It highlights his sense of isolation and yearning for something he has never known, the warmth of his parents' presence. But what is especially striking about this moment is the profound impact the mirror has on Harry's life and development, an impact that unfortunately is somewhat lost in the cinematic adaptations. In the films after the first Harry Potter movie, the mirror is essentially forgotten. The visual and emotional weight it carries, especially in relation to Harry's quest for identity and belonging, is nearly erased. The scene, with all its poignancy and tragedy, is confined to a single movie, whereas in the books, the Mirror of Erised C's journey is far more complex and significant. After Harry's first encounter, Dumbledore explains to him that the mirror was moved. It was taken away because it offered an unhealthy distraction, one where people could lose themselves in their desires to such an extent that they forgot to live their real lives. The mirror becomes a symbol not just of longing, but of the dangerous pull of obsession. It shows a future that can never be, and that is why it can be allowed to stay in the open. This crucial piece of information reveals a deeper layer to the mirror's symbolism, one that film audiences might have missed. The mirror, its disappearance from Harry, his life could be viewed as a turning point, a subtle push to focus on reality and embrace the present. Harry's relationship with his parents is a pivotal part of his identity, but Dumbledore's wisdom offers Harry a crucial lesson the past can never truly return. The mirror, in a way, becomes a representation of the dangers of holding on to that which is lost. The truth that it reveals is never tangible, always unattainable. It is a vision of longing, not of fulfillment. And so Dumbledore's words linger in Harry's mind, even though the mirror itself vanishes from his immediate life. The transition from the mirror's mesmerizing power to the daily struggles of Harry, his journey could have served as an emotional thread that connected his growth through the rest of the saga. However, the mirror returns in a crucial moment in the final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, albeit in a fragmented form. It appears once more in the form of a shard, a broken piece left by Sirius Black as a gift to Harry. This shard, a remnant of the mirror, serves as a bridge between generations and losses. When Harry looks into the fragment, he sees a reflection not of his parents, but of Aberforth Dumbledore, his long-lost uncle, whose role in the Dumbledore family was far more hidden and complex than Harry could have imagined. This new revelation is significant because it connects Harry to the past, but it also marks a shift in his relationship with the Dumbledore family. The Mirror of Erised, through this shard, has now taken on a new function. It is no longer just a conduit to the past, but a symbol of continuity, memory, and the complicated connections between individuals. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the fragment of the mirror is instrumental in unraveling the secrets surrounding Dumbledore's life and death. It's through this shard that Harry's understanding of Dumbledore's character deepens, and in turn Harry's understanding of himself grows, just as Harry has had to come to terms with his own past and losses. The mirror now shows him a part of the Dumbledore family that he did not know. This piece of the mirror becomes a representation not of desire but of discovery, the discovery of family, of connection, of the threads that bind people together across time and space. It's an evolution of the mirror's power as it moves from a dangerous object of obsession to a meaningful artifact of familial bonds. If the full journey of the Mirror of Erised had been explored in the films, it could have served as a deeply emotional and symbolic anchor throughout the entire saga. The idea of the mirror, Dean's power, shifting from Harry's deep longing for his parents to a complex reflection of family and loss would have added layers of meaning to the final films. In the books, the mirror becomes a subtle symbol of Harry's maturation. He begins with a desperate longing for a past that can never be reclaimed, but by the end, he accepts the pieces of his family as history that remain and uses them to make sense of his identity. The broken mirror found at the end of a difficult journey is a fitting metaphor for the fractured world Harry inhabits, and for the broken connections he must heal. Beyond just Harry, the mirror also acts as a mirror, not only for him, but for the entire wizarding world. The mirror is an object that reflects the truth, even when that truth is painful. For Dumbledore, for example, the mirror would have revealed his deepest regret, his wish to return to a simpler, more innocent time before he made mistakes that cost him dearly. This personal connection to the mirror speaks to the larger themes of the series, where each character is forced to confront their past and their deepest desires and come to terms with the consequences of their actions. For Harry, seeing the mirror again at the end of his journey is a powerful reminder that while longing for the past is natural, one must not lose sight of the present, and that embracing the future requires letting go of the past. The disappearance and return of the mirror also carries a lesson in the passage of time. As Harry grows and matures, his relationship with the mirror changes. In the beginning, it serves as an escape, a way to comfort him in the absence of his parents. But by the end, the mirror's message has shifted. It is not about what he wishes could have been, but about what he can still make of the life he has. The mirror's final image, showing Aberforth Dumbledore, is not a vision of a lost possibility, but of a new connection, a person who is there for him in the present, offering help and guidance. This shift reflects Harry's own growth. He moves from longing for the past to accepting the importance of the present and future. Ultimately, the Mirror of Erised remains a potent symbol of desire, memory, and loss. It is a magical object that reflects the deepest parts of the heart, but it is also a reminder of the dangers of clinging to what cannot be. The mirror's journey, from its initial introduction as an object of comfort to its later role as a symbol of connection and understanding, mirrors Harry's own journey of growth and self-acceptance. Its absence from the films after the first movie is a missed opportunity to explore these deeper themes visually and emotionally, but the mirror's return in the Deathly Hallows offers a fitting conclusion to its story, one that connects the past with the present and ties together the themes of love, loss, and the passage of time that run throughout the series. Number 22, the unspoken love triangle, Bill, Fleur, and Tonks. In the wizarding world, love is not merely a subplot or an accessory to the grand adventures. It is as complex and multifaceted as the world itself. One of the more subtle and overlooked romantic dynamics in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series is the brief yet intriguing love triangle involving Bill Weasley, Fleur Delacour, and Nymphadora Tonks. While this story was largely left out of the films, it adds a layer of emotional depth to the characters, showing that even in a world of magic and danger, the heart's desires are as complicated as ever. It all begins quietly with Tonks' fleeting affection for Bill Weasley. Nymphadora Tonks, known for her quirky nature and striking metamorphmagus abilities, had always been the life of the party, the embodiment of carefree spirit. Yet beneath her cheerful exterior there was a softness that longed for genuine affection. Tonks, ever the optimist, had developed a crush on Bill Weasley, the charming and brave member of the Weasley family. She was drawn to his good looks, his courage, and his inherent kindness, qualities that had not gone unnoticed by the many in the wizarding world. In the books, it's not explicitly stated that Tonks was deeply in love with Bill, but it's clear that she had strong feelings for him. These feelings were a natural part of Tonks' character arc as she navigated her emotional landscape, seeking something real, something true amidst the chaos of war. Bill, on the other hand, was not oblivious to her affection, yet he was far more focused on his duties as a member of the Order of the Phoenix and the ongoing threat of Lord Voldemort. Bill's heart, however, belonged to someone else, a woman who had already captured his attention and affection, Fleur Delacour. Fleur, the beautiful and graceful champion from Beauxbatons during the Triwizard Tournament, had long since made an impression on Bill, despite her initially haughty and somewhat aloof demeanour. Fleur's pride, though, was no match for her love for Bill, and the two had become a couple after the tournament. Their relationship, however, was met with some scepticism, particularly from the Weasley family, who found Fleur's outward beauty and the superficial nature of her French persona hard to accept at first. Yet Fleur proved herself to be much more than a pretty face. Her devotion to Bill, especially after he was attacked by Fenrir Greyback, spoke volumes about her character, revealing a depth of emotion that surprised many, including the Weasley matriarch, Molly. But it was Tonks who felt the sting of unrequited love most keenly. When she learned that Bill and Fleur were not just friends but an item, she was hit hard. While it wasn't an outright heartbreak, Tonks' reaction was telling. She became quieter, more withdrawn. She would often be seen moping around, with her cheerful facade slipping into something much darker. Molly Weasley, ever the maternal figure, noticed this shift in Tonks' demeanour and expressed concern, remarking that Tonks seemed down, her usual spirited nature replaced by something more distant. Molly, with her keen sense of family dynamics, worried that the cause of Tonks's mood was the loss of Bill's affection. However, this assumption, while understandable, was not entirely correct. What Molly didn't know, and what readers learn as the story unfolds, was that the real source of Tonks' distress had nothing to do with Bill or Fleur. Instead, it was the growing distance between Tonks and her beloved Remus Lupin that truly wounded her. Lupin, despite his deep respect and admiration for Tonks, struggled with his own insecurities about being with her. He feared that his condition as a werewolf would lead to her eventual heartbreak, and thus he distanced himself from her, much to her confusion and sorrow. Tonks' feelings for Bill, though they were real, had been overshadowed by the emotional pain caused by Lupin's rejection. In contrast to the films, where this nuance is entirely glossed over, the books provide a subtle yet powerful portrayal of Tonks's vulnerability. In the world of wizards and witches, love is not always neatly packaged, and it's often the emotions that are left unspoken, the feelings not entirely reciprocated, that resonate the most. Bill and Fleur's relationship, while undoubtedly filled with love and tenderness, was not the only romantic arc unfolding. Tonks' emotional turmoil over Lupin and the lingering shadow of her brief infatuation with Bill added complexity to her character, reminding readers that in the magical world, love was as intricate and messy as it is in the real world. The films, however, chose not to explore this emotional tangle in depth. With their focus on action, adventure, and the looming threat of Voldemort, the intricacies of Tonks' feelings were largely omitted. While the films did touch on the relationship between Tonks and Lupin, they ignored the earlier, subtler dynamic between Tonks, Bill, and Fleur, which could have further emphasized the emotional stakes of the characters' journeys. This omission, while perhaps necessary for pacing and dramatic tension, left a gap in understanding Tonks' character, as it was this very emotional complexity that made her more than just a secondary figure in the narrative. J.K. Rowling's decision to include this nuanced romantic subplot in the books, even if it was never fully realized, was a testament to her ability to create multifaceted characters whose emotional growth was just as important as their bravery and accomplishments. The love triangle, though unconsummated, was a momentary reminder that even in the shadow of the darkest times, characters like Tonks, Bill, and Fleur were dealing with the universal struggles of love, loss, and longing. They were not merely chess pieces in the fight against evil. They were real people, each carrying their own heartaches and desires. Tonks' eventual acceptance of Lupin's love, despite his initial rejection, further cemented her character's growth. She moved past her infatuation with Bill and embraced the love she had for Lupin, even as their relationship was fraught with challenges. Lupin's eventual acceptance of Tonks' unconditional love showed a different side to him, revealing that, like Tonks, he too had to confront his own fears and insecurities. Their love, though not without pain, was ultimately one of the most poignant in the series, highlighting that even in a world of magic and mystery, the most powerful forces are often the most human: love, acceptance, and the courage to open oneself up to others. In the grand tapestry of the year 54 series, the love triangle of Bill, Fleur, and Tonks serves as a quiet reminder that even in the midst of war, the heart's desires remain as complicated and unpredictable as ever. The emotions of these characters, however briefly explored, provide a glimpse into the depth of the wizarding world, where love is as unpredictable, painful, and beautiful as it is in our own world. Through these characters, readers are reminded that love is not a simple, linear journey, but a complex, ever-evolving story, full of twists, turns, and moments of unexpected clarity. Number 23, Stan Shunpike and the Fear-Driven Ministry. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, as well as Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, J.K. Rowling delves into the themes of fear, power, and corruption within the Ministry of Magic, revealing how the government becomes increasingly erratic and unjust in its response to the growing threat of Voldemort. One of the most poignant examples of this shift is the story of Stan Shunpike, the young conductor of the night bus, who becomes an unfortunate victim of the Ministry as fear-driven tactics. The books make it clear that by the time the events of Deathly Hallows unfold, the Ministry is no longer functioning with the integrity or fairness one would expect of such an institution. The government, under the influence of Voldemort's growing power, becomes more authoritarian, using fear as a weapon to maintain control over the wizarding world. But what is particularly unsettling is how they target ordinary, innocent people, using them as pawns in a twisted game of political theatre to show the public that they are, quote 55-5 to us, to fight the Dark Lord. Stan Shunpike, a character who is introduced early in the series, becomes an unwitting symbol of this unjust system. In the books, it is revealed that Stan is arrested by the Ministry, accused of being a Death Eater simply because he was seen in the wrong place at the wrong time. There is no real evidence to suggest his involvement with Voldemort, each followers. Yet the Ministry, desperate to appear active in their fight against the Dark Lord, seizes upon him as a scapegoat. It is a chilling example of how fear leads to the erosion of justice and the rise of indiscriminate persecution. The Ministry's actions towards Stan highlight a dark truth about the nature of power when those in control are governed by fear rather than reason or compassion. They will stop at nothing to maintain the illusion of power, even if it means crushing innocent lives in the process. This is made all the more evident when Harry Potter learns of Stan's arrest. The fury he feels is palpable. He realizes that the Ministry is not genuinely trying to fight Voldemort, but rather attempting to create a facade of doing so. They have no real plan, no real leadership. Instead, they are willing to sacrifice anyone they can label as a threat, no matter how innocent or unconnected they are to the real danger. In Deathly Hallows, Harry's outrage is not just a response to the injustice faced by Stan, but also a realization of the Ministry's moral decline. In a world where fear has taken over, the distinction between right and wrong becomes blurred, and innocent lives are destroyed for the sake of maintaining control. Stan's arrest is just one example of how the Ministry exploits the public. Is fear of the Dark Lord for their own benefit, hiding behind the illusion of justice, while turning the wizarding world into a place where the innocent are punished without cause. The irony, of course, is that Stan Shunpike, who is presented in the series as a somewhat bumbling and harmless figure, becomes one of the first casualties of the Ministry's terror. The very people who are supposed to protect the citizens of the wizarding world are now the ones responsible for its undoing. Rowling uses Stan's plight to illustrate the devastating consequences of fear-driven governance. It's a direct parallel to the real-world situations where governments have resorted to arbitrary arrests, suspicion and punishment in the name of security, often targeting vulnerable groups with no real evidence of wrongdoing. What makes Stan's arrest so particularly telling is the lack of any real investigation into his supposed ties to Voldemort. There is no trial, no defense. The Ministry, in its panic, assumes guilt based solely on association or circumstance, creating an environment in which anyone could be accused and punished without any semblance of due process. Stan is not a Death Eater, he is simply a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and yet he is treated as if he were a threat to the very fabric of society. The absence of this storyline in the films is a significant loss in the cinematic representation of the wizarding world. The films, which already condense much of the intricate political and moral discourse of the books, omit Stan's arrest, failing to convey the full extent of the Ministry's descent into tyranny. By removing this crucial plot point, the films miss an opportunity to deepen the narrative, exploration of fear, power, and injustice, leaving audiences with a more simplified and sanitized version of events. The books, on the other hand, reveal the true cost of a society ruled by fear, a world where justice is replaced with cruelty, and the powerless are victimized for the sake of maintaining the status quo. Rowling's inclusion of Stan Shunpike's story is not only a commentary on the corrupting influence of fear on power, but also a reflection on how society can become complicit in its own destruction when it allows its leaders to rule with impunity. The Ministry's actions echo historical instances where governments in times of crisis or war have turned on their own people, demonizing the innocent in an effort to maintain control. The figure of Stan Shunpike, a minor character in the grand scheme of the series, is thus elevated to a symbol of the broader societal failings that occur when fear overwhelms reason. In the end, Stan's fate serves as a stark warning about the dangers of fear-mongering. It is not just the Ministry that is to blame, but the society that allows such abuses of power to go unchallenged. Through the character of Stan Shunpike, Rowling invites readers to reflect on their own world, asking them to consider the ways in which fear can lead to injustice and how easily society can fall into a state of moral decay when it is governed by panic rather than principle. The story of Stan Shunpike, though not central to the larger plot of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, encapsulates a key theme of the series, the corrupting influence of fear on those in power. It shows how the Ministry, once a beacon of order, becomes a tool of oppression, sacrificing the innocent for the sake of its own survival. In the broader narrative of Harry Potter's fight against Voldemort, Stan, his story is a reminder that the battle against evil is not just about defeating dark wizards, but also about preserving the values of justice, compassion, and fairness in the face of fear and uncertainty. By examining Stan's story, Rowling paints a chilling picture of a world where fear rules, where the innocent are persecuted, and where power is maintained not through wisdom or righteousness, but through the exploitation of fear itself. In this way, Stan Shunpike's story is not just a subplot, but a powerful commentary on the nature of power, justice, and the dangerous consequences of allowing fear to govern our actions. Number 24, Buckbeak's Trial and Injustice in the Magical World. In the Harry Potter series, Buckbeak, the magical hippogriff, stands out as one of the most memorable creatures, and his fate offers a glimpse into the deeper themes of justice and prejudice. In the films, Buckbeak's story is reduced to a brief but impactful moment, where he serves as a means of escape for Harry and Hermione, who use him to rescue Sirius Black from the tower. However, the true depth of Buckbeak's narrative, explored in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, is far more nuanced and plays a critical role in highlighting the themes of injustice, bias, and the fight for those who cannot defend themselves. The drama surrounding Buckbeak begins when Draco Malfoy, the spoiled son of the powerful Lucius Malfoy, insults the hippogriff. Draco, ever arrogant and confident in his family, his influence, approaches Buckbeak with the same sense of entitlement that often defines his interactions with others. However, Buckbeak, being a creature of pride and dignity, does not tolerate Draco's behavior and retaliates. The resulting incident leaves Draco injured, and while it is a seemingly minor matter, it sets off a series of events that reveal the prejudices and the dark undercurrents of power that flow within the wizarding world. Draco's father, Lucius Malfoy, uses this incident to his advantage, pushing for Buckbeak's execution. Lucius, a known supporter of the Dark Lord, has long manipulated the system to suit his own desires, and he sees in Buckbeak an easy target. The creature, a magical being who cannot defend himself in the human world, is vulnerable to the whims of powerful wizards like Lucius. The Ministry of Magic, already under strain due to its ongoing troubles with Lord Voldemort's return, bends to the pressure of the Malfoy family and agrees to bring Buckbeak to trial. This moment marks the beginning of a legal battle, one that, though seemingly about a creature, Sign's fate symbolizes much larger issues of fairness, corruption, and bias. Hagrid, Buckbeak's keeper, and one of the few who cares deeply for the Hippogriff's well-being, takes on the daunting task of defending him. Hagrid, with his heart of gold but often lacking the social finesse that the wizarding world respects, finds himself in a battle not only for Buckbeak's life, but also against the broader injustices that plague the magical society. He appeals to the fairness of the law, trying to argue that Buckbeak's actions were justified, and that Draco was the one at fault. However, Hagrid's emotional appeal falls on deaf ears. The wizarding world, steeped in tradition and snobbery, does not take kindly to creatures like Buckbeak, who live outside the rules of human control. The trial of Buckbeak represents an idealized version of justice being corrupted by prejudice. Despite Hagrid's best efforts, the court, influenced by the power of the Malfoy family, seems determined to execute Buckbeak. Wizarding society, rife with bias against magical creatures and their rights, fails to recognize that Buckbeak is a creature of honor, bound by a different code, and not one of mindless aggression. This lack of understanding is epitomized by the cold, bureaucratic handling of the case, where logic and reason take a back seat to the powerful sway of wealth and influence. It is at this point in the narrative that Hermione Granger's brilliance and dedication come to the forefront. Hermione, always a voice of reason and logic in the face of chaos, becomes pivotal in Buckbeak's survival. After the trial, she realizes that there is a way to save him, a solution that has been right under their noses all along: time travel. The trio, with Harry, Hermione, and Ron, manage to use a time turner, a magical device that allows them to travel back in time. Their goal is to alter the outcome of Buckbeak's execution and ensure that he does not meet the grim fate that awaits him. The use of the time turner is a significant moment in the story, not just for its practical application, but for its thematic implications. By travelling back in time, the trio challenges the idea of fate and shows that even the smallest actions can change the course of events. Buckbeak's rescue is more than just a moment of triumph for the heroes. It is a testament to the power of intervention and the importance of fighting for what is right, even when the odds are stacked against you. The decision to save Buckbeak highlights another critical theme in the series: the value of all life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Buckbeak, like many magical creatures in the Harry Potter world, represents a group that has often been marginalized and oppressed. The magical world, with its hierarchy of creatures, often places wizards and witches at the top, while creatures like Buckbeak are seen as little more than tools or objects to be used. Yet throughout the series, characters like Hagrid and later Harry, Hermione, and Ron challenge this view, demonstrating that all beings, magical or not, deserve respect and justice. The scene in which Buckbeak is saved is filled with emotional tension. The trio's successful intervention not only saves the Hippogriff, but also restores a sense of fairness, albeit in a world where injustice often prevails. Buckbeak's release is a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it is a powerful one. It serves as a reminder that even in a society as flawed as the wizarding world, there is always room for hope, for those willing to stand up and fight for what is right. Buckbeak's fate also serves as a poignant reflection of the larger battles at play in the wizarding world. Just as Buckbeak is condemned by the prejudices of the Ministry and the power of the Malfoy family, so too are other marginalized groups within the wizarding community, such as house elves and other magical creatures. The trial and subsequent rescue are a microcosm of the broader fight for equality and justice in the wizarding world. The characters who fight for Buckbeak, Harry, Hermione, and Hagrid embody the values of fairness and courage that are essential to challenging the deep-seated biases of their society. In the films, however, this storyline is greatly simplified. While the execution of Buckbeak still takes place, the legal battle and the thematic depth surrounding the trial are reduced to a brief subplot. The time turner is used mainly for the purpose of saving Sirius, and while Buckbeak's rescue is certainly significant, the emotional weight of the situation is not fully explored. The film, in its effort to condense the story, loses some of the poignant lessons that can be drawn from Buckbeak's trial, particularly the commentary on how power and influence can manipulate the law to serve personal interests. The emotional impact of Buckbeak's trial is largely felt in the books, where the reader is given more time to witness the build-up to the trial, the biases at play, and the actions of the characters who fight for justice. Buckbeak is not just a magical creature caught up in a legal battle. He represents something larger, the struggles of those who cannot speak for themselves, who are at the mercy of a biased and often unjust system. In a world that often looks down on creatures like Buckbeak, it is the actions of a few brave individuals that ultimately make a difference. This storyline, though trimmed in the films, remains one of the most significant in the series for its moral and ethical implications. Buckbeak's trial and his eventual rescue underscore the recurring themes of fighting against injustice, standing up for those who are vulnerable, and challenging the prejudices of society. Through the character of Buckbeak, J.K. Rowling invites readers to question their own beliefs about justice and fairness, and to consider the ways in which those with power often exploit the powerless. The story of Buckbeak, in all its complexity, serves as a reminder that every being, no matter how magical or mundane, deserves a fair chance. Number 25. The Carrows and the Occupation of Hogwarts. After the fall of the Ministry of Magic in Deathly Hallows, Hogwarts becomes a place of fear and oppression, a stark contrast to the vibrant, joyful school it once was. The films, despite their thrilling action and dramatic sequences, only hint at the horrors that unfold within the walls of the castle. They briefly touch upon the tyranny that grips the school, but the books delve much deeper into the atmosphere of terror that envelops Hogwarts. One of the most chilling aspects of this dark chapter in the Harry Potter saga is the presence of the dark wizards, Death Eaters, who infiltrate the school, transforming it into a breeding ground for fear, manipulation, and cruelty. Under the cruel leadership of Alecto and Amicus Carrow, two members of Voldemort's inner circle, Hogwarts becomes a prison for its students. Alecto and Amicus, tasked with teaching the dark arts and maintaining discipline, embody the oppressive nature of the regime that Voldemort has imposed on the wizarding world. They are not just teachers, they are tormentors. Their role is to ensure that Hogwarts aligns with the values of Voldemort's new order. Alecto, with her cold, menacing demeanor, and Amicus, who relishes in the sadistic pleasure of cruelty, take their positions as both instructors and enforcers of terror. Alecto and Amicus Carrow's teachings are not only about magic, but also about subjugating others, breaking them, and instilling in the students a deep fear of their oppressors. The school becomes a battlefield of will, as students are forced to live in a world where their worth is determined by their obedience. Alecto, who is put in charge of teaching the dark arts, forces students to practice unforgivable curses, turning them into weapons of oppression. The Cruciatus curse, used to inflict intense pain, becomes a tool for control. Students are ordered to cast it on each other, the pain and fear rendering them defenseless. What is particularly horrifying about this period is the way the Carrows treat the students as though they are nothing more than subjects to experiment on. The use of the Cruciatus curse as a punishment becomes part of the curriculum. Students who once wandered freely through the halls of Hogwarts are now reduced to trembling beings too afraid to speak up or resist. It is a grotesque distortion of the school's original purpose. An institution that once nurtured learning and friendship is now a place of suffering and fear. Neville Longbottom, one of the students caught in the oppressive web of the Carrows, emerges as an unlikely hero. Despite the overwhelming pressure and the torturous methods employed by the Death Eaters, Neville refuses to succumb to the fear that grips his peers. His story is one of remarkable courage and resilience. Time and again, Neville resists the Carrows' attempts to break him. He does not fall in line like so many others. Instead, he becomes a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for those who are too afraid to act. In the midst of this nightmare, Neville begins to organize a secret resistance. He creates a hidden sanctuary within the school, the Room of Requirement, a place that had long been a symbol of refuge for the students. It becomes their base of operations, a place where they can meet in secret, plan their resistance, and find solace in one another's company. Neville's leadership is born out of necessity and determination. The Room of Requirement becomes a symbol of resistance, a place where the students who still dare to fight against the regime can unite. As the story unfolds, Neville's role as a leader grows. He is no longer the timid, forgetful student he once was. Instead, he becomes the heart of the underground movement at Hogwarts. He leads the DA, the Dumbledore's army, in defiance of the Carrows and their tyrannical regime. Through sheer force of will and the support of his friends, Neville transforms from a student filled with self-doubt into one of the key figures in the rebellion against Voldemort ill forces. His bravery is nothing short of extraordinary. He faces death, pain, and the risk of losing everything, yet he presses on. He embodies the spirit of resistance and the fight for freedom, even in the face of overwhelming odds. But Neville, his heroism is not without cost. The fear and trauma of living in a school ruled by dark forces take their toll on him, as it does on many others. There are moments when he feels the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. But through it all, Neville never wavers in his belief that the fight is worth it. His courage becomes infectious, inspiring those around him to join the cause and stand up to the oppressive forces. His actions remind the students of Hogwarts that there is always hope, even in the darkest of times. The Carrows' presence at Hogwarts is not just about the immediate pain they inflict, it is also about the long-term psychological damage they cause. The school becomes a microcosm of the war outside, where the Death Eaters, much like the dark forces of the world, work relentlessly to instill fear, control, and obedience. But in the face of this darkness, the students of Hogwarts, led by Neville and others, show that resistance is not only possible, but necessary. They fight for what they believe in even when the odds seem impossible. The terror the Carrows bring to Hogwarts is not just a matter of physical torment, it is also about the control they exert over the minds and hearts of the students. Through manipulation and intimidation, they seek to create a generation of wizards who are docile, afraid to speak out against the regime. But the students, especially Neville, resist this. They fight to maintain their integrity, their courage, and their belief that there is more to life than fear and oppression. The horrors that unfold at Hogwarts during this period are not limited to the Carrows' actions alone. The school itself becomes a place of surveillance, where students can no longer trust their peers or their teachers. The walls are filled with whispers of betrayal, fear, and loyalty. There are those who choose to side with the Death Eaters, either out of fear or out of a desire for power. They betray their classmates, turning in those who oppose the regime. But Neville and his friends, through their unity and bravery, show that there is still hope. Neville's journey culminates in a moment of remarkable bravery. During the final battle, Neville's actions prove that he is more than just a symbol of resistance. He is a true leader. His decision to stand up to Voldemort despite the odds is a testament to the strength of his character. In the end, it is Neville's refusal to give in to fear, his unwavering courage, and his dedication to the cause that define him as one of the true heroes of the Wizarding War. The presence of the Carrows and the oppressive regime they bring to Hogwarts adds a layer of depth and gravity to the narrative of Deathly Hallows. It transforms the school into a battlefield, a place where the struggle for freedom, justice, and hope is fought in the hearts and minds of the students. The Carrows' cruelty, the pain they inflict, and the resistance they face all contribute to the overall atmosphere of war, where even the walls of Hogwarts cannot protect those who dare to stand up against the forces of darkness. The bravery of Neville Longbottom and the resistance movement he leads offer a powerful message of hope, showing that even in the darkest of times, the fight for what is right will always endure.